Sri Ramana. Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We will begin today's Ramana Puranam with an invocatory verse from Tirumandiram, written by Tirumular. ஐந்து கரத்தனை யானை முகத்தனை இந்தி இளம்பிறை போல மெய்ற்றனை நந்தி மகந்தனை ஞான கொழுந்தினை புந்தியில் வைத்தடி போற்றுகின்றேனே. We pray to Lord Ganesha to give us the knowledge and fortitude to understand the task at hand, which is to appreciate Ramana Puranam as composed by Sri Muruganar and Sri Bhagavan. We will resume from where we left last week, and we are towards the end of where the Ramana Puranam is. So we left it at line number 418. The last verse we saw was Padiyadi Mundrum Pavithara Kanbarkur Mudalai Mudinda Mulu Mudala Avane Mudalide Iru Aditan Monama Jnana Madalai Vadivattu Marubapperane. Today we will start at line number 419. Kanavai Nanavai Kavarthuyilai Kanum Manavan Maya Ulagu Maivam Adida Turiya Veliyam Idaya Tuya Veliyaga Viriyum Odiya Meviyupam Suvittiye. So here Bhagavan is writing about the infinite nature of the self, and he's starting to give us a glimpse of what has been described in various Upanishads and Vedas on various different aspects of the self in relation to what we experience in our daytime dreaming and deep sleep. So here, the first two lines, Kanavai, Nanavai, Kavar Tuyilai, Kanum, Mana, Van, Maya, Ulagu, Maivam. Kanavai, in dreams, Nanavai, in wakefulness, Kavar Tuyilai, the desirous deep sleep, Kanum, seeing, Mana Van Maya Ulagu Maivam. We see the world through the world of mind, Mana Van Maya, through the world of mind, Ulagu, this entire celestials, which appear to us only through these three states, which is waking, dreaming, and a very desirous deep sleep. Everybody desires deep sleep. Maivam, they end. When do they end? Adida Turiya Veliyam Idaya Tuya Veliyaga. Idaya Tuya Veli, the pure experience in the heart. What is it called, the pure experience of the heart? Adida Turiya Veliyam. Adida means it is outside of those three. What are those three? Dreaming, waking, and deep sleep. Outside of those three are Adida Turiya Veli. It is the fourth, or what is called as Turiya or Turiyam. Turiya Veli is the vast expanse within the heart of each being. So what happens in that? Viriyum Oliya me Viripam Suvittiye. Viriyam Oliya, it's the effulgence of the Supreme Self, and this is called me Viripam Suvittiye. May means truth. Vigipam meaning waking, Suitiye is sleeping. So this is waking sleepless or sleeping sleepness. So Bhagavan calls this waking sleep or sleepless sleep. That is what it's called, which is to be awake to the presence of the self is called sleepless sleep. கனவாய் நனவாய் கவர்த்துயிலாய் காணும் மனவான்மய உலகு மாய்வாம் அதீத துரிய வெளியாம் இதய தூய வெளியாக விரியும் ஒளியாம் மெய் விழிப்பாம் சுழுத்தியே. For the mind that wanders through wakefulness, dreaming, and desire-laden deep sleep, you bring its joy to an end, shining as the pure expanse of Turiya within the vast stillness of the heart, unfolding as effulgent light in the sleepless sleep. In a conversation recorded in Day by Day by Devaraja Mudaliyar, Dr. Srinivas Rao asked Bhagavan, what is the meaning of Tungamal Tunguvadu or being in sleepless sleep? Bhagavan answered as follows. It is in the jnani state. In sleep, our ego is submerged and the sense organs are not active. The jnani's ego has been killed and he does not indulge in any sense activities of his own accord or with the notion that he is the doer. So he is in sleep. At the same time, he is not unconscious as in sleep, but fully awake in the self. So his state is sleepless. This sleepless sleep or wakeful sleep or whatever it may be called, it is the Turiya state of the self on which, as the screen, all the three avasthas, the waking, dream, and deep sleep pass, leaving the screen unaffected. Bhagavan said that instead of holding on to that which exists, we are looking for that which does not. We bother about the past and the future, not realizing the truth of the present. We do not know the Adi, beginning, or Andam, end, but we know the middle. If we find out the truth of all this, we shall know the beginning and the end. Bhagavan quoted from Bhagavad Gita, I am in the heart of all beings, and I am their beginning, middle, and end. Bhagavan also said that reality is only Mauna, as quoted by Tayumanavar. வேறுபடும் சமயமெல்லாம் புகுந்து பார்க்கின் விளங்கு மரம் பொருளே நின் விளையாட்டல்லால் மாறுபடும் கருத்தில்லை முடிவில் மோன வாரதியில் நதித்திரள் போல் வாங்கிற்றம்மா. If we scrutinize all the religions which look so different, we find nothing discrepant at all in them, but they are only your Lord's sport. They all end in quiescence or mauna as rivers merge in the sea. So this is the description of sleepless sleep as described by Bhagavan. Now, moving on to the next few lines, lines 423 to 426, we continue this theme of trying to describe the Supreme Self in relation to the three gunas. முன்னையுறு முக்குணத்தான் முற்றியவா மண்ணுயிர்க்கு நுண்ணை உறவாக்கும் மதிநுட்ப இயல்பாலே முதற் குணத்தால் அன்றி முயங்கல் உராயேனும் அதற்கும் அப்பால் ஓங்கும் அதீதமா நிர்குணமே. Munnayuru Muggunathan, you have existed prior to the appearance of three gunas. What are the three gunas? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So the Lord has existed even before those three gunas have present. Those three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, they were ancient to start with, and he's even more ancient than those three, which means he stands apart from those three, unaffected by them. Then he goes on to say, Mutriyava, Mannuyirku Nunnai Uravakum Madinutpa Iyalbale. Mannuyirku Ninnai, all beings on the earth, every being on the earth, Unnai Uravakum, the only way that they can realize you is Madinutpa Iyalbale, in the subtlest possible way. What is the subtlest possible way? Mudar Gunatal Andri. It is the first of the three gunas which shows a subtle path to realize you. What is that first guna? Which is called Sattva, meaning it is the one that is closest to get to him to reveal his glorious self. Despite that, Muyengalural, Ayenum, even though that is the case, அதற்கும் அப்பால் ஓங்கும் அதீதமா நிர்குணமே. You remain apart, untouched by even by Satvik itself, free from all discernible qualities. Adidama Nirguname, he has no discernible qualities. It is pure perfection that cannot be described even through the gunas. So here, what is happening is he's saying the three states, the waking, dream, deep sleep, he can't be realized. Through the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, he cannot be realized. Why? Though sattva is the path through which he can be realized, he remains apart, even untouched by sattva. முன்னையுறு முக்குணத்தான் முற்றியவா மண்ணுயிர்க்கு நுண்ணை உறவாக்கு மதிநுட்ப இயல்பாலே முதற்குணத்தால் அன்றி முயங்கலுராயேனும் அதற்கும் அப்பால் ஓங்கும் அதீதமா நிர்குணமே. You stand beyond the three ancient gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. All beings can approach you only through the subtlest path of sattva, yet even then you remain apart, untouched by sattva itself, free from all discernible qualities. Moving on, பன்னிலையாய் தோற்றும் படற்கையோடு முன்னிலைக்கும் முன்னிலையாம் தன்மை தன் மூலமறிந்து அற்றால் அதனோடு அவையும் ஒருங்கு ஆங்கே அழிவுற்று அதனொளியே தன் உண்மையாகும் அகண்டமே. Here he describes three different times, meaning, three different in relation to you. The first person, second person, and third person. Here, Pannilayai Totrum, he appears in manifold forms. How does he appear in manifold forms? Padarkayodu Munnilaikum. Either that appears as a second person, which is Munnilai, or Padarkai, which is the third person. Either we see that entity or we have heard of that entity as a third person. That is how the manifold forms appear. Even then, முன்னிலையாம் தன்மை தன் மூலமறிந்தற்றால், the only way to realize him is through the first person that rises as I am, or the first primal thought, I thought. His presence is felt through the first person awareness. முன்னிலையாம் தன்னை தன் மூலமறிந்தற்றால். You know, to realize him is through the I am thought, and then the realization happens only by being itself. There is no realization as knowledge or intellect. He says, Arindatral, by becoming is how you realize him. Adanodu, avayum urungu ange azhivutru. But when the realization occurs, along with the first person I thought, the second and third person, all of them dissolve. All others dissolve in that state. Adanodu avayum ange azhivutru, they disappear. Adan oliye, through the supreme effulgence, tan unmayahum, he is the supreme self, akandame, the unbroken consciousness, the unbroken supreme self that is always effulgent. That is the self. So here there is no second person, third person. It is the primal I thought that leads one to the self. தன்னிலையாய் தோற்றும் படற்கையொடு முன்னிலைக்கும் முன்னிலையாய் தன்மை தன்மூலமறிந்தற்றால் அதனோடு அவையும் ஒருங்கு ஆங்கே அழிவுற்று அதனொளியே தன் உண்மையாகும் அகண்டமே. Though you appear in manifold forms, the second, third persons can perceive your presence only through the first person awareness I am. When this primal I thought and all other thoughts dissolve, they subside in you, the supreme, unbroken, effulgent self. Moving on, lines 431 to 434. ஊனாக நான் போய் உருவழிந்த மாட்சியால் காணாது காணும் கருணை கண்ணோக்கத்தார்க்கு இம்மையே அன்றி எம்மையும் சென் மாத்திரமாம் செம்மையாய் நீடும் சிவலோக காட்சியே. ஊனாக நான் போய். Oon means becoming food. Nan poi, whatever that rises as I, or this I thought, ஊனாக நான் போய், by offering it as the food to the Lords or as prasad to the Lords. So this is the symbology behind offering prasadam at temples. because we are offering our I thought as a prasadam to the Lord. So in return, He Himself comes and occupies us or absorbs us. ஊனாக நான் போய் உருவழிந்த மாட்சியால். The ego completely dissolves and becomes formless. உருவழிந்த மாட்சியால், the grandness. So when the ego dissolves, what remains is the Supreme Self, and that is very grand. மாட்சியால் காணாது காணும் கருணை கண்ணோக்கத்தார்க்கு. Here, like sleepless sleep, he says காணாது காணும், looking without looking, or beholding without beholding, meaning seeing without seeing. Here, that phrase means seeing not through the idea of through the physical eyes, but through the inner faculties or the inner self. காணாது காணும் கருணை கண்ணோக்கத்தார்க்கு, the graceful inner glance, கண்ணோக்கத்தார்க்கு, seeing without seeing or beholding without beholding through the gaze of inner grace, the greatness of the Supreme Self becomes clear. இம்மையே அன்றி, not only in this life, மற்றெம்மையும், in all other lives to come, Chinmatiramam, the supreme space where he is established, Semmayai, in all its glory, Needum Sivaloha Kakshiye. This becomes the resplendent abode of Shiva. That is who? Verily, that's Bhagavan himself. That is the sight itself, the very presence of seeing the Supreme Self is Bhagavan. ஊனாக நான் போய் உருவழிந்த மாட்சியால் காணாது காணும் கருணை கண்ணோக்கத்தார்க்கு இம்மையே அன்றி மற்று எம்மையும் சென்மாத்திரமாம் செம்மையாய் நீடும் சிவலோக காட்சியே. By offering the I thought as nourishment to the self, the ego is wholly absorbed, beholding without beholding through the gaze of inner grace. Not only in this life, but through all lives to come, they abide in the supreme space of the self, the resplendent abode of Shiva in all his glory, which is verily you, meaning that is verily Bhagavan himself that appears as the supreme effulgence of self that is visible everywhere across the board when one sees without seeing or beholding without beholding, which is through the inner grace and the gaze that comes from it. Moving on, lines 435 through 442. என்றுமோர் இன்றேயாய் நின்ற நிகழ்ச்சியுனை அன்றி இறப்பு எதிர்வு ஆய்வு ஒன்று இன்று என்னலன்றோ ஆதலின் நீதானே அகமிதமாய் அன்றியும் முப்பொழுது இடனாய் ஓரப் புலப்படுதி அத்தகவே தேரவோ அன்றி தற்தேற்றவோ தன்னினும் வேறிலாது ஒன்றாய் விளங்கலால் தானே அவிச்சார நோக்கமாம் அநேக விசேடத்தும் அவிர்ச்சாரமாம் மெய் அவிசேட ஞானமே. Here, the three time scales are discussed, the present, past, and future. And how is it that Bhagavan describes this? Indrumor indreyai nindra nigalchi unai. So he is always in the present tense. Indrumor, always, ever present, always present right now. Indrumor indreyai, when you are ever present in the current, in the present tense, nindra nigalchi unai, you always exist right now. Andri, but for it, irappu edirvu. Can we talk about him in the past or future tense? No, because he's always in the present. ஆய்வு ஒன்று இன்று எண்ணலன்றோ. So to think of the Supreme Self either in the past or present is learning to count without using the number one. How can we do it? Because counting by definition is adding one to every number. We can't count without the number one. Likewise, ஒன்று இன்று எண்ணலன்றோ. You can't count without the number one. Likewise, there is no past or future without the present, when Bhagavan or the Supreme Self is currently can be experienced right now, right this moment within our heart recess. இன்றுமோர் இன்றையாய் நின்ற நிகழ்ச்சி உனை அன்று இறப்பு எதிர்வை ஆய்வு ஒன்று இன்று எண்ணலன்றோ. When you are ever present in the eternal present, to speak of you as existing in the past or future is like counting all numbers while omitting the number one. ஆதலின், therefore, or thus, நீதானே அகமிதமாய் அன்றியும் முப்பொழுது எடனாய் ஓரப் புலப்படுதி அத்தகவே. ஆதலின், therefore, நீதானே, you alone, ahamidamai, tatvamasi. Ahamidam is that you are tatvamasi. Andriyum, you, not only you are that tatvamasi. So tatvamasi is a great Mahavakya mentioned in Upanishads. So the Supreme Self alone is referred in the phrase tatvamasi, or that you are ever shining effulgent self. Not only that, முப்பொழுது இடனாய் ஓர புலப்படுதி. Ora pulapadhi, meaning when we research முப்பொழுதும், in all three times, past, present, and future, ora pulapadhi. He alone exists in all three time folds because there's nothing else. Because the very support of the present, past, and future is the Supreme Self. So he's not only referred as that you are, but he's also the basis on which the past, present, and future, meaning the entire time, exists on the self. Then, Teravo Andri Tat Tetravo Tanninum Veriladu. Teravo, there is nothing to learn new. Andri, not only that, Tat Tetravo, there's nothing to be taught. There's nothing to learn, there is nothing to taught. There's neither learning nor instruction. Right? Veriladu, because he's undifferentiated. Onrai, as the singular Velangalal. He is present as singular self without any duality. Veriladu, without any duality. Onrai, he exists as the perfect present self. Without need for teaching or instructions or learning. Then he goes on to say, Avichara no kamam. When we look through the eyesight, meaning the physical eyes, avichara means the ignorant eyesight, anega visedatum. He appears in everything, avircharamam, as the effulgent inner self, avicheda jnaname. Avisesham is perfection or puranam, jnaname, the wisdom. So he alone exists as the perfect wisdom in everything that appears as multitudes through this physical eyes. So what is said here, he's always present right now. To think of him as past or future is like counting without the number one. He's mentioned as that you are, or tatvamasi. He is the basis on which the present, past, and future tenses exist. When researched, we will find out. He can't be taught or he can be learned. There are no instructions needed. Why? Because he always exists as the singular, undifferentiated Supreme Being. Moreover, even when we look through the ignorant eyes, what appears as many things is nothing but that supreme effulgence that shines from within all of those multiple different things as the perfect wisdom. இன்றுமோ இன்றேயாய் நின்ற நிகழ்ச்சியுனை அன்று இறப்பெதிர்வை ஆய்வு ஒன்று இன்று எண்ணலன்றோ. ஆதலின் நீதானே அகமிதமாய் அன்றியு முப்பொழுது எடனாய் ஓரப் புலப்படுதி அத்தகவே. தேரவோ அன்றி தட்டேற்றவோ தன்னினும் வேறிலாது ஒன்றாய் விளங்கலால் தானே. அவிச்சார நோக்கமாம் அநேக விசேடத்தும் அவிச்சாரமாம் மெய் அவிச்சேட ஞானமே. When you are ever present in the eternal present, to speak of you as existing in the past or future is like counting all numbers while omitting the number one. Thus, you not only shine as Tattvamasi, but also the very support of the threefold time, present, past, and future, when truly examined. Needing neither learning nor instruction, you shine as the perfect self, free of all duality, the very light within all that appears under the gaze of ignorance. Moving on, lines 443 to 448. நீடும் பரஞான நிட்டைக்கோர் ஆலயமா கூடு பரமா துவித உண்மை குலாச்சலமே செவ்விய நின் உண்மை திறத்தின் கண் தம் உண்மை ஒவ்விட நன்று ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலால் அல்லாது சச்சித்தாம் உன்னை சடவிடைய சுட்டறிவாம் இச்சித்து ஆய்வால் எங்கண் எய்திடும் உண்மை காட்சி. So now Bhagavan has spoken about the three states, three identities, first, second, and third persons. Then spoke about three different time scales, present, past, and future. Now he explains the infinite supreme being cannot be understood through the objective knowledge of intellect, except for abiding in the true I am I that shines from within everyone's heart. It's very clearly explained here. Needum parajnana nittaikor alayamam. So for the supreme being that exists everywhere, infinitely everywhere, as a sacred temple, alayamam, and he is a supreme temple for all those who wish to realize the supreme self. Needum parajnana nittai. Nittai is to do penance. For those who really want to do penance to really realize the supreme self, Kudu Paramadhvida Unmai Kula Achalam. Kula Achalam means very special hill. Achalam here refers to the unmovable or the unmoving hill, referring to Arunachala. So here Bhagavan clearly indicates he himself is Arunachala because he describes himself as the supreme undifferentiated, unmoving hill that makes support available as if it's a temple hosting all those who want to do penance to realize the Supreme Self. நீடும் பரஞான நிட்டைக்கோர் ஆலயமாம் கூடு பரமாத்துவித உண்மை குலாச்சலமே செவ்விய நின் உண்மை திறத்தின் கண் தன் உண்மை ஒவ்விட நன்று ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலால் அல்லாது செவ்விய நின் உண்மை திறத்தின் கண். Your supreme experience is available through the truly shining I am I செவ்விய நின் உண்மை திறத்தின் கண், the beautiful truth that it reveals தன் உண்மை ஒவ்விட, to realize that self, நன்று ஓர்ந்து, by enquiring, ஓர்ந்து means enquiring, ஒடுங்கி, abiding, ஒன்றுதலால், becoming one, அல்லாது, without that, Chatchittam, you are Chat and Chit, meaning existence and consciousness, உன்னை, you, Chadavidaya Suttarivam, how can you be realized through the intellect? Suttarivu means the knowledge that's born of intellect. Ichittu ஆய்வால் எங்கண் எய்திடும் உண்மை காட்சி. How can you be realized through the knowledge that's born of intellect, which itself is born of that I am I, which is the supreme effulgence that shines from within. So here the path to realize is only through the inquiry, who am I, that leads one to the supreme self that always shines as I am I. As abiding as that truth, one reaches the supreme glory or the supreme abode of the self that ever shines everywhere. நீடும் பரஞான நெட்டைக்கோர் ஆலயமாம் கூடு பரமாத்துவித உண்மை குலாச்சலமே செவ்விய நின் உண்மை திறத்தின் கண் தன் உண்மை ஒவ்விட நன்று ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலால் அல்லாது சச்சித்தாம் உன்னை சடவிடைய சுட்டறிவாம் இச்சித்து ஆய்வால் எங்கண் எய்திடும் உண்மை காட்சி. as the sacred temple for those who dwell in the endless, infinite expanse of supreme wisdom. You are the supremely undifferentiated Arunachala hill. You are known only through the power of inward abidance in the self, shining as the true I am I. Since you, the self, shine as Chat and Chit, existence and consciousness, how can you be realized through objective knowledge born of intellect? Moving on, lines 449 through 452. தன்னை விடயமார் தானறிய தான் இரண்டு துன்னலிலா ஏகத்தால் சுட்டறிவு கூடா அத்தன்னையே கோவணமால் சாத்தினதால் போலும் அதற்கு என்னையோ வண்ண நிறம் என்று அறியா வாலறிவோய். தன்னை விடயமாம். So, தன்னை விடயமாம், the self vidayam as an objective reality, as the thing outside of the self. Tennai vidayama tan ariya. How can you realize that self as an object? Because tan irandu tunnalila. The self cannot be divided into two as broken. Tunnal meaning broken, ila without breaking. So self can't be broken into two. Why? Because it is only one. Egatal. Egatal is only one, which is to split the one into two is impossible. Therefore, you can't have I realizing something else because there's nothing else to realize when you say I. It is that supreme undifferentiated self. தன்னை விடயமா தானறிய தான் இரண்டு துன்னலிலா ஏகத்தால் சுட்டறிவு கூடா. Therefore, the knowledge, the intellect that actually says, hey, go and realize that, at it cannot be possible. Then he goes on to say, at தன்னையே கோவணமா சாத்தினதால் போலும் அதற்கு என்னையோ வண்ண நிறம் என்று அறியா வாலறிவோய். There is a beautiful history behind these two lines. At tannaye, that self is worn as kaupina, the loincloth that Bhagavan wears. At tannaye kovanama satyanadar polum. So the kaupina that Bhagavan wears is nothing but the supreme self. அதற்கு that kaupina என்னையோ வண்ண நிறம் என்று அறியா வாலறிவோய். So he is so absorbed in the supreme self that he can't even know the color of the loin cloth that he is wearing, which itself is the self, because there's nothing else apart from the self. So it's interesting why Muruganar is writing those two lines as why he is describing the self as the kaupina, the loin cloth, and why is he describing that this when the absorption happens, you can't even know the color of your own loincloth. The history behind that is described in V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai's biography, which I have posted here, in which Chengalvaraya Pillai gets a dream. So I'll read the English translation I've done on the Tamil work, that the biography on V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai, in which it stated, I went to Tiruvachakam where a multitude of devotees was assembled. Everyone was worshipping by circumambulating around Bhagavan. When my turn came up, Muruganar asked me to pay homage and to ask him what the color of the loincloth he was wearing was. So all of this is a dream that V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai had. In the dream, he goes to Bhagavan, and in the dream, everybody walks around Bhagavan, and Muruganar asks Chengalvaraya Pillai in his dream to go and pay his homage to Bhagavan. So then the dream continues. I, in my turn, at the feet of Bhagavan, weeping and cried, Swami, what is the color of your exalted loincloth, that one spoken of in the phrase, he wears himself as a loincloth? May you show your compassion and clarify this matter. Immediately he replied, this is not even known to me, and asked me to repeat the line again twice. He listened to me and then asked, what is the wonderful line? Where is that wonderful line found? I replied, it is in the Tiruchazhal in the Tiruvachakam verses. That's good. That must be remembered. Don't think of others and don't use bad words. He said. So that is how the dream ends. So Bhagavan's explicit guidance to V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai is, பிறர் சிந்தனை வேண்டாம், தீய சொற்கள் கோராதே. That is what he says in his thing, which I am pointing out here. Yena upadesittar. He gave that upadesa in his dream. So that is how this, when that incident was narrated to Muruganar, Muruganar made sure that was included in these lines. Tanniye kovanama chatinadar polum adarki ennayo vannaniram endru ariya valarivoi. As he said, those lines he mentioned in his dream was from a Tiruvachakam verse from Tiruchazhal, which I have found and placed here. Ennappan embiran ellarkum than ஈசன் துன்னம்பை கோவணமா கொள்ளுமது மென்னேடி மண்ணுகளை துண்ணுபொருள் மன்றே நான் மறை நான்கே வான் சரடா தன்னையே கோவணமா சாத்தினான் கான் சாழலோ. So here it says, Ennappan Embiran. The way that Tiruchazhal works is the first two lines are a question posed by a friend. The last two lines acts as a defense of the question or the answer to the question. What is the question posed? Ennappan Embiran ellarkum thaneesan thunnampai kovanama kolluvadum ededi. Ennedi, which means the first girl's asking, my Lord, Lord Shiva, who is the father of everybody and is God to all, why does he wear the simple loin cloth and moves around by wearing the loin cloth around his waist? Ennappan Embiran ellarkum thaneesan thunnampai kovanama kollumadum ennedi. Why does my Lord Shiva, who is the father and God to all, adorn a simple loincloth around his waist? Then the answer is Mannugalai Tunnu Porul Marainange Vansarada Tannaye Kovanaman Sathinan Khan Saralo. Understand that the threads of the loincloth are intricately woven from all forms of art, Mannugalai, all forms of art, Tunnu Porul, encapsulating the essence of Marai Nange, the all four Vedas are woven as threads, and only those threads form the loincloth that is worn by the Lord. Therefore, let's play Sorrel, which is the game that these two girls are playing. So that is the verse that happened in the dream of V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai. And Bhagavan says, hold on to that verse. He says, listen to me. Where is the wonderful verse? It is in this world. That's good. That must always be remembered. Remember, this verse is what he's saying. Ennappan Embiran ellarkum than ஈசன் துன்னம்பை கோவணமா கொள்ளுமதும் என்னேடி மண்ணுகொலை துண்ணுபொருள் மறை நான்கே வான் சரடா தன்னையே கோவணமான் சாத்தினான் கான் சாழலோ. So that incident is referred here. அத்தன்னையே கோவணமா சாத்தினதால் போலும் அதற்கு என்னையோ வண்ணனிறம் என்று அறியா வாலறிவோய். With that, we will move to the next set of lines from 453 to 460. அந்தமன கற்பனையால் அன்றி பொருள் சேரா முந்து ஊழ் முகந்து வழி உந்து மொழி உடைத்தாய் மிக்க நீர் வேட்கையால் வேசற்று உழல்வார் முன் தொக்க நீர் ஏய்ப்பத்தான் தோன்று வரும் பெய்த்தேர் போல் ஊறு நிழல் ஓசை உலகு ஓந்து உனை சேர்ந்தார் பொருளாம் சீரை ஒழித்து நிழல் சித்திரமா கண்டு கழித்து ஏழிசையை அன்னவற்றுக்கு இன்றியமையா மூல ஊழிசையை விட்டோண்டு ஒக்கும் அதிமேதைகளாம். அந்த மனக்கற்பனையால், with that mind's imagery, Andri Porul Sera, there is no other meaning to the egoic life. So what does the ego mean? Egoic life comes from the images that are formed in our mind. Anda mana karpanayal, Andri Porul Sera, there is no other meaning. Mundu ul muhattu vali undum uli udaithai. So imagine there's a cyclone, and the cyclone swirls around and makes a lot of restless noise. Vali undum oli udaithai, meaning the noise that comes from a cyclone is nothing. Likewise, mundu ul muhandu, the karmas that are inherited through vasanas, which were discussed in the prior section of Ramana Puranam, where vasanas carry the karmas from one to another birth. Because of that, the ego is born, and ego exists only through the images that are formed in our mind. Anda mana karpanayal andri porul sera mundu ul muhandu vali undum oli udaithai. He just makes empty noise like cyclone, which is swirling around. And then he goes on to give another example. மிக்க நீர் வேட்கையால் வேசற்று உழல்வார் முன் தொக்க நீர் ஏய்ப்பத்தான் தோன்று வரும் பேய் தேர் போல். So imagine a person walking around in a desert and feels very thirsty. And that person can look at any mirage and think the water exists there and then run towards him. Likewise, the ego weaves all these images, wanting us to go and grab them. When you grab them, the next object appears, we go and grab next one. So likewise, we just keep moving from one object to the other object. They are not real. The experience not even real. Why? Because the experience can happen only by abiding in the self, and the happiness doesn't come by acquiring anything. Likewise, மிக்க நீர் வேட்கையால் வேசற்று உழல்வார் முன் தொக்க நீர் ஏய்ப்பத்தான் தூன்று வரும் பேய்த்தேர் போல். பேய்த்தேர் means mirage or non-existing water. ஊறு நிழல் ஓசை உலகு ஓந்துணை சேர்ந்தார் பொருளாம் சீரை ஒழித்து நிழற்சித்திரமே கண்டுகளித்து. Imagine a screen and there are a lot of images that come up on the screen. We get so engrossed in those images and we identify ourselves, we cry and we laugh and all the rest of it. But when the images go away, what remains is the screen. Likewise, when the mind, which constantly produces the images, we get entertained by it and we always cry and laugh. But when the mind dies, what remains is the supreme self, like the screen of a movie. Uru niyal osai, meaning the moving screen and the making noise, the moving pictures. Osai, ulagu vondu unai. We think of that as a world and then we desire. Sendar Porulam. They go and acquire those things like how the movie images come about. Seerai ஒழித்து நிழற்சித்திரமே கண்டுகள். We ignore the screen, we just enjoy the movie that appears in front of the screen. And then he gives another example. ஏழிசையை அன்னவற்றுக்கு இன்றி அமையாத மூல ஊழிசையை விட்டோண்டு ஓக்கும் அதிமேதைகளாம். He says அதிமேதைகளாம், meaning they're very brilliant people. Who are those brilliant people? They enjoy those 7 notes of any music. ஏழிசை, the music that's made of 7 notes, is enjoyable only if you know the basic note. The foundational note are called Adhara Shruti in Tamil. The foundational note. Without that pitch, the 7 other notes do not make sense. Likewise, if the C doesn't exist, all other notes do not make any sense because they all exist in relation to the foundational note. Likewise, if we don't understand the self, nothing else would matter because now everything else is just noise. Likewise, we need to go and realize the self, without which everything appears as images in our mind's screen. So here 4 different examples are given for us to meditate on in this section. அந்தமன கற்பனையால் அன்றி பொருள் சேரா முந்து ஊழ் முகத்து வழி உந்து மொழி உடைத்தாய் மிக்க நீர் வேட்கையால் வேசற்று உழல்வார் முன் தொக்க நீர் ஏய்ப்பத்தான் தோன்று வரும் பெய்த்தேர் போல் ஊறு நிழல் ஓசை உலகு ஓந்து உனை சேர்ந்தார் பொருளாம் சீரை ஒழித்து நிழற்சித்திரமே கண்டு களித்து ஏழிசையை அன்னவற்றுக்கு இன்றியமையா மூல ஊழிசையை விட்டோண்டு உவக்கும் அதிமேதைகளாம். Without mind's imagery, the ego life has no meaning. Driven by past karmas and vasanas, it swirls like a cyclone, making a restless noise. From this ego springs all suffering. Just as a thirsty wanderer in the desert finds only a mirage, so too all happiness sought in external objects prove hollow. Such attractions bring no true joy. Failing to notice the screen, people are carried away by the passing images upon it, mistaking themselves for learnt experts and keen intellects. They delight in the 7 musical notes, forgetting the foundational pitch, the fundamental pitch upon which all other notes depend. Moving on, lines 461 through 464. அந்நிய மாமாய விடயங்களில் போன்று ஐயம் முரண் தன் இயல்பாம் உண்மையிலோர் சற்றுமெழாவாற்றாலே நள்ளிருளில் உள்ளொளியாய் நாத்திகத்தும் ஆத்திகமாய் தள்ளறு மெய்ஞான்ம சதோதயமாம் தற்பரமே. So here he says, even if you don't have the belief in any God or any other external forces, it doesn't matter because he shines from within, and the self-evident truth doesn't require any other beliefs, whether it is believing in God, not believing in God, denying the God, it doesn't matter because it's always present from within. So there is no other proof needed anywhere else. Anya Mamaya Vidayangalil. Mamayam means the supreme Shakti, the Maya Shakti that weaves all these massive objects externally. போன்று ஐயம் முரண் தன்னியல்பாம் உன்னையிலோர் சற்றும் எழாவாற்றாலே. We get doubts, we get muran, we get contradictions. Where Anya Mamaya Vidayangalil, in all external objects, threads woven in the shaft of Supreme Maya, Anya Mamaya Vidayangalil Pondru, Ayam Muran, doubts and contradictions do not exist. Where it does not exist, Tanniyalbam Unmayilor Satrum Eravatrale. To say I exist, there is no doubt. To say I exist, there is no contradiction because I am. So there is no doubt or contradiction in the direct experience of who we are. Tanniyalbam unmayilor, in the direct experience. Satrum eravatral, there is not even a smallest of doubts because it's self-evident, it's direct. Therefore, nal irulil ulloliyai. Even in the darkest night, the inner effulgence can be seen. You don't need any external light. We just close our eyes, we see the Supreme Self shining in front of us or from within us. There is no other object needed. There is no light needed for this. Nallirulil ulloliyai நாத்திகத்தும் ஆத்திகமாய். Nathigam, to deny God or to accept God. It doesn't matter. Tallaru, both can be rejected. Why? Menyana sadodayamam tarparame. Tarparam is ever present supreme being as I. Sadodayamam. Sadodayamam is never ending, always shining. Meyanma, the supreme self or the truth self. Tallaru, it cannot be ignored. He can't be ignored because he is truth, he is a self shining, always present self. So, the Anniya Mamaya Vidayangalil Pondru Ayyam Muran Tanniyalbam Unmayilor Satrum Vatrale Nallirulil Ulloliyai Nathigattum Athigamai Tallarumeyanma Sadodayamam Tarparame. The doubts and contradictions that arise in all external objects, threads woven into the shaft of Supreme Maya, do not exist in the direct experience of the self. Even in the darkest night, you shine as the inner radiance within the heart. Even those who deny God deny your presence as the ever luminous self. Sorry, even those who deny God cannot deny your presence as the ever luminous self. Lines 465 to 468. போக்கு வரவின்றி பொலிவுற்று ஒருபடித்தாய் நீக்கமர எங்கும் நிறைந்த சுகவாழ்வே அவியா விளக்காய அகத்தூடு தெய்வச் சவியார்ந்து ஒளிர் சொரூப சைதன்யமே. போக்கு வரவின்றி, there is no going, there is no coming for you. பொலிவுற்று, you shine. ஒருபடித்தாய், you are always same with the same character. What is the character? நீக்கமர எங்கும் நிறைந்த சுகவாழ்வே. You are present everywhere as the blissful being without absence. Nikkamara engum, without absence engum, everywhere. Nirainda, always full of sukha valvu, blissful life. There is no going, there is no coming, there is no change to that. Aviya velakai, your unfading lamp. Aviya velakai, ahattu uudu deiva. You illuminate the lotus of the inner heart. Deiva chaviyarndu, as divine radiance. Ulir, you shine. Sorubamam, as the substance. How? Chaitanyam, which is Chat Chittanandam, which is existence, consciousness, or bliss. You illuminate the inner lotus of the heart as the supreme effulgence, Sat Chittananda, or Chaitanyam. போக்கு வரமின்றி பொலிவுற்று ஒரு படித்தாய் நீக்கமறை எங்கும் நிறைந்த சுக வாழ்வே அவியா விளக்காய அகத்தூடு தெய்வச் சவியார்ந்து ஒளிர் சுரூப சைதன்யமே. Without going or coming, you shine as the unchanging self, pervading all without the slightest absence, the very embodiment of supreme bliss. Like an unfading lamp, you illumine the lotus of the heart with the divine radiance as the self, existence, consciousness, and bliss. Satchit Anandam or Chaitanyam. Then the beautiful, the poetry flows down in praise of Arunachala. I mean, you can see Bhagavan just loving Arunachala and composing the rest of these lines. Irule, Oliye, Irandu Malada Porule, Adiyom Puhalam Parame, Terule, Terulin Telive, Telinda Arule, Adida Chitrambalamam Sembadame, ஒன்றே இரண்டே உவை கடந்த மோன மணி மன்றே மருந்தே மணியே வான் மந்திரமே முன்பே முளைத்த முழு முதலாம் இன்பப் பேர் அன்பே சிவமாம் அமர்ந்த அனந்தமே. I mean, it's even hard to translate these things, but it just flows out of Bhagavan with the pure love that he has for Arunachala in this. Irule, your darkness, Oliye, your light, Irandu Malada Purule, yet you shine beyond both light and darkness. Irandu Malada, you are neither darkness nor light, although you are darkness and light, because there's nothing aside from the Supreme Self. Irule, Oliye, Irandu Malada Purule, Adiyom Puhalam Parame. We surrender to you and you become our refuge. Why? Because you are the Supreme Self. Adiyom, you offer refuge to us devotees. Puhalam Parame, you become the supreme effulgence, and for us devotees, you are the refuge. Terule, you are clarity. Terulin Telive, you are the clarity of the wisdom. Telinda Arule, you are the most clarified, grace, the revealed grace, the essence of the grace. Telinda Arule, Adida Chitrambalamam Sembadame, you are the great liberation radiating as the knowledge, which is the glorious knowledge, Sempadame, Sitrambalamam, you are in everywhere in the boundless expanse as Chitrambalam, which is Ambalam means space, Chitrambalam as a self-shining, glorious space. Sempadame, you are everywhere, Atidam, you are in excess, you are boundless, and you are the great liberation. One ray, you are one. Irande, you are two. Uvai kadanda mona maniye, you are neither one nor two. You are everything beyond that two. So you are one, you are two, and you are both. Uvai kadanda mona, uvai means all others. Kadanda mona, you go beyond those two. Mona mani, meaning you are the Supreme Self as the silent awareness. Mandre, you are the open space. Marunde, you are the medicine. Maniye, you are the celestial gem. Van Mandirame, you are celestial mantra. Munbe, you existed before. Mulaitha Mulu Mudalam Inba Peranbe, you are the primal reality shining as Arunachala, which is Shivam. Amanda Anandame, you are still in Arunachala as Supreme Shiva is right here. That's all he ends with. Irile, Oliye, Irandamala, Purule, Adiyom, Puhalam, Parame, Terule, Terulin, Telive, Telinda Arule, Adida Chitrambalamam, Sembadame, Undre, Irande, Uvegadanda, Monamani, Mandre, Marunde, Maniye, Van Mandirame, முன்பே முளைத்த முழுமுதலாம் இன்பப் பேரன்பே சிவமா அமர்ந்த அனந்தமே. You are darkness, you are light, yet you shine beyond both. You are the Supreme Self, the refuge of all devotees. You are the wisdom of the Self, the clarity of that wisdom, the very essence of the revealed grace. You are the great liberation radiating as a knowledge of the boundless expanse. You are one, you are two, yet beyond both. You shine as a Supreme Self. You are the open space, the divine medicine, ever radiant gem, and the celestial mantra. You are the primal reality shining as Arunachala, perfect wisdom and bliss. You are infinite bliss, abiding eternally as Shivam. Moving on, 477 through 482. ஒன்று மலை தன்னையலால் ஒன்றுமிலை ஆய உனை மன்ற ஒருவல் மரத்தலை ஆதலால் ஒன்று பேரன்பால் ஒத்து வெங்கூற்றம் போல் அன்றினராலும் அதே நினைவால் எய்துவராய் ஆயினும் அவ்வாற்றல் அடியடைதல் வன்கண்மை ஏ அரக்கர்க்கே இயல்பின் இயல்பதுகான். So the first line here, Ondrumalai, is split as either Ondrumalai, meaning the single mountain, or Ondrum Alai, meaning whatever that moves abides as singular. Ondrum Alai or Ondrumalai. You can see it in both words. Tannai Alal, Ondrumalai. This mountain is nothing but the Supreme Self. Ondrumilai. That which is ever one need not even be called as one. Ondrumalai Thannayalal Ondrumilai. That which is one cannot even be called as anything other than one. That is one way of looking at. Or Ondrum Malai Thannayalal Ondrumalai. That mountain that shines from within cannot be called anything other than the self. Either way, we can look at the meaning. Aya Unai. We can actually realize that through gazing inwards. Mandra uruval marathale adalal. To deny you is to forsake your presence, or to turn away from you is to forget and forsake the presence of the self itself. Mandra uruval marathale adalal. Ondru peranbal ottu. Either we melt for him and surrender, we realize, or வெங்கூன்றம் போல் அன்றினராலும் அதே நினைவால் எய்துவராய். To hate like death, in order to hate, we need to keep thinking about the object of hatred. Because we think about Shivam as even as the object of hatred, we can reach him as well. We see that in the tale of Lord Ravana, where he kept hating Rama so much. At the end, he attained liberation because he kept thinking about Rama, though he hated him. Vengutrambol Andrinaralum. You can either love and you can attain the supreme bliss, or you can hate. Just because you're hating the self, the very thought of that will actually get you there. However, he says, Adenivadal Eidurai Ainum, because you always think about it, you reach there, but Avvatral Adiyadidal. To do that, meaning to hate and reach the self, is one kanmai eya arakarke. It is only for demons, not for regulars. That's why even the asuras and demons are shown to be praying Lord Shiva always. Why? Because they are hating the presence of the Supreme Self. Because the object they hate is the self, they automatically reach that. Let's not do that. That's what he says. Avvatrul adiyadadal van kanmai eya arakkarke yelbin yelvadu kan. Only for them it is possible because they reach the path of hatred. That is also a path that's available, but that's not for normal. It's only for demons or asuras. Or those who follow that path are the asuras or demons. ஒன்றுமலை தன்னையலால் ஒன்றுமிலை ஆயவுனை மன்ற உருவல் மரத்திலை ஆதலால் ஒன்று பேரன்பால் ஒத்து வெங்கூற்றம் போல் அன்றினராலும் அதே நினைவால் எய்துவராய் ஆயினும் அவ்வாற்றல் அடியறைதல் வன்கண்மை ஏய அரக்கர்க்கு இயல்பின் இயல்வதுகான். That which is ever one need not even be called as one. To turn away from you is to forget and forsake the presence of the self itself. Thus, those who melt in love for you as well as those who hate you like death are both drawn by thoughts of you and come to your abode. Yet the path of coming to you through hatred is fitting only for the asuras or demons. Lines 483 to 492. அன்பு செயலன்றி வேறாக அத்துவித தன்மயமே ஞான்ம சதாசிவமாம் தேவே இயல்பில் பேர் அன்புருவாய் ஏதலால் தன்னின் அயல்களில் எல்லாம் மிகு மெய்யன்பு சேர் உன்னை வெறுப்பதாய் உள்ளம் வியர்ப்பது தம் பெட்பை மறுப்பதாம் மூட மதிமயக்க மாத்திரமாம் அன்பொழுக்கம் அற்ற அழகை தம் ஆற்றாமை துன்புழுக்க நின்றரிக்கும் தன்மத்து உருகதிரே என்பிலவை வெய்யற் இறப்பது போல் தாம் பதைப்புற்று அன்பிலவை போல் மாய்தல் அறக்குற்றம் அன்றே. The last two lines is referring to a Tirukkural, which is என்பிதலனை வெயில் போல காயுமே அன்பில் அதனை அறம். So we will quickly see the meaning of the first, these 10 lines. அன்பு செயலன்றி வேறாக. Since love alone is very nature, nothing else is. Av advida, that undifferentiated bliss. Tanmaya me anma sadasivamam deve. You are Lord Sadasiva who shines as his undifferentiated self. Why? Because loving is your nature. Anbu seyalentri veraha. You have no other nature but for love. And therefore, you are Lord Sadasiva that appears as this undifferentiated bliss for everyone. இயல்பில் பேரன்புருவாய் ஏதலால் தன்னின் அயல்களில் எல்லாம் மிகு மெய் அன்பு சேர் உன்னை வெறுப்பதாய் உள்ளம் வியர்ப்பது தம் பெட்பை மறுப்பதாம் மூட மதிமயக்க மாத்திரமாம். இயல்பில் பேருன்புருவாய், because your essence is supreme love, ஏதலால் தன்னின் அயல்களெல்லாம் மிக அன்பு மெய் அன்பு சேர், loving everything else but for you in the self, உன்னை வெறுப்பதாய், to think that we are going to hate you is in truth மெய் அன்பு சேர் உன்னை வெறுப்பதாய் உள்ளம் வியர்ப்பது தம் பெட்பை மறுப்பதாம். To hate you is to deny their own existence. Why? Because your very nature is love, and your very nature is to exist within the self. So to hate you is to hate our presence right now, which is மறுப்பதாம் மடி மூட மதி மயக்க மாத்திரமாம். It is only because of the confusing demonic nature. And then he goes, அன்பொழுக்கம் அற்ற அழகைத்தாம் ஆற்றாமை, அன்பு ஒழுக்கம் அற்ற அழகைத்தாம் ஆற்றாமை துன்புழுக்க நின்றருக்கும் உன்மத்து உருகதிரே. He comes and gives torture and suffering for those who lack love. அன்பொழுக்கம் அற்ற அழகைத்தாம் ஆற்றாமை துன்புழுக்க நின்றரிக்கும் தன்மத்து கதிரே. How the great rays of sun comes and makes suffering for those that has no backbone. என்பிலவை வெய்யிற்கு இறப்பது போல், those without backbone, those insects without backbone die in front of the sun. Likewise, those who lack love suffer in front of the Supreme Self. The rays of the self will actually make them suffer. Why? Because the nature of the Supreme Self is to love. So not love meaning not knowing the self, meaning denying the self. So to deny the self and acquiring something is to suffer. தாம் பதைப்புற்று அன்பிலவை மாய்தல் அறக்குற்றமன்றே. So it is not against the dharmic nature. Arakutramandre, it is not against dharmic nature. In fact, it's perfection. Like how the sun makes the insects without backbones suffer and die. அன்பு செயலன்றி வேறாக அத்துவித தன்மய மெய்யான்ம சதாசிவமாம் தேவே இயல்பில் பேர் என்புருவாய் எய்தலால் தன்னின் அயல்களில் எல்லாம் மிகு மெய்யன்பு சேர் உன்னை வெறுப்பதாய் உள்ளம் வியர்ப்பது தம்பெட்பை மறுப்பதாம் மூட மதிமயக்க மாத்திரமாம். அன்பொழுக்கம் அற்ற அழகை தாம் ஆற்றாமை துன்புழுக்க நின்றருக்கும் தன்மத்து உருகதிரே. என்பிலவை வெய்யற்கு இறப்பது போல் தாம் பதைப்புற்று அன்பிலவை மாய்த்தல் அறக்குற்றம் அன்றே. With that, we will wrap up today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I just want to make a couple of remarks, like that remark about without one or two, the count we were talking about before. That goes in the same line of உள்ளது நாற்பது நிகழ்வினை பற்றி, the 15th verse.
Yes.
As well as இருளே தெருளே, that poem reminds me of அபிராமி அந்தாதி. பொருளே பொருள் முடிக்கும் போகமே அரும்போகம் செய்யும் மருளே மருளில் வரும் தெருளே என் மஞ்சத்து இருளெல்லாம். It's almost, I think the praises what they're trying to say is the self or God. In Abhirami Andadi, he is talking to the goddess, is like the polar opposites, and that one is beyond the polar also. I think that sort of the same theme appears in this also. So
yes, I mean the entire section is in massive elaboration of உள்ளது நாற்பது all the way from 244 to now. Bhagavan just explains in every way, right? It's not three different tenses, it's not three different objects, it's not three different states. Then he goes and gives us an elaborate explanation, everything pointing back to the self, everything come back to the self. He goes everywhere only to show what exists there is not good, come back to the self. But I agree.
Because that is beyond this polar. Like all we know is only the polar, or probably sometimes we know the average in between, like a gray, black and white, and then gray. But it is beyond all those things. But that is the basis of everything, which probably we can only relate it to sleep, where there's no light, but there's no dark. But there was something which we cannot describe, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
But this is beautiful poetry, right? I mean, to your point.
that particular 469 to 476 is superbly written. As well as there were some few lines before where it was more like Shiva Puranam. I forgot what line because we didn't summarize this time. I think there was a couple of lines that you went before that was exactly the lines as if it was போக்கும் வரவுமின்றி பொன்னும் இல்லா புண்ணியனே காக்குமென் காவலனே காண்பரிய பொரு. Yeah, exactly. These two lines that also resemble Shiva Puranam also.
Yeah, I mean, you could see several references Tiruvachakam throughout everywhere, right? But the thing is, it's an elaboration. I mean, that's why it's called Ramana Puranam, appropriately.
Correct.
Named, but it's in relation to Bhagavan and in relation to Arunachala here, because that is a big reveal next week when we see that the last section of Ramana Puranam. Revelation is Bhagavan is Arunachala, so that is where it's going to end the fourth page.
Okay.
But
see,
all building that reality.
Yeah, but in Shiva Puranam, when I used to read Shiva Puranam as young, always I was thinking like Mickkavachagar was praising Shiva as like a form, as a god. I never got that meaning until I came to Bhagavan's side. I never thought that was based on the Advaita self or anything. Even though later on I learned he was the Lord himself in the temple was Atmanada. But when you are young, you are always think that is a form of Shiva. That is the meaning I was thinking of Shiva Purana. Only now I can see the resemblance that it was more towards the omnipresent self as a formless thing instead of a god as a linga or something like that.
Yep.
So, yeah. Thank you.
Good. There are no other questions? We will end today. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good.